Hello everyone, I'm Dave Peters. I am here as a consumer first and foremost, I guess, but well, not I guess, I am here first and foremost as a consumer. I also work at the Brother of St Laurence in the Research and Policy Centre as someone with lived experience. I am co-chair of Neami's Nationals Research and Evaluation Committee and also co-chair of the Equally Well Alliance Committee.
So that's enough work for most weeks.
Yeah.
Now you presented today about the NDIS, which has been a problem for people with psychosocial disability, as they like to put it. Can you run through your main points from that?
Certainly can. I guess it initially stemmed from my own issues with dealing, I guess, with the system. I was fortunate in coming from a program in Victoria that transferred automatically to the NDIS, so it was a defined program. But for people with a psychosocial disability who are applying for the scheme sort of either out of the FAMs, the personal helpers and mentors, partners in recovery and day-to-day living programs, they're having a few problems trying to meet those entrance criteria. The Productivity Commission all the way back in 2011 sort of thought that this group of about the most severe cases of mental illness in Australia, so the top 10%, is about 65,000 people every year, and that's what the NDIS should be catering for. We should be looking at this sort of 65,000 people with the most severe symptoms who are mostly, severely disabled from their psychiatric illness. In the situation in Victoria, as part of the Coalition of Governments Agreement, the Victorian Government made an arrangement whereby the consumers, who I was one of, using the Mental Health Community Support Service, so MHCSS, about 13,500 people automatically transitioned into the NDIS. But as part of that arrangement, all the funding for that service was transferred to the NDIS. Meaning all those services and those companies that were providing that service no longer had that foundation on which to hold their business up. So some of the big companies, but also a lot of the small companies had a real difficulty staying in business. So that meant really a loss of services. These companies could have also offered those three programs, the Personal Helpers and Mentors, FAMs, Partners in Recovery, PIR, and Day-to-Day Living. But without that sort of basis of the MHCSS, this wasn't enough to sustain them. So a lot of these companies have sort of withdrawn from the market. Some have closed down. Some have just decided not to offer any NDIS services. But I guess originally we sort of started talking about my presentation, which is...
But they are very big problems, and you said that they're particularly big problems in Victoria, which found its own model. But then you talk nationally about how just the stress and strain put on people, particularly around the idea of recovery, strength-based approaches, and then the NDIS model. What are they?
I guess the recovery-oriented practice is very much the concept that with or without symptoms, we can still pursue a meaningful life that is our choice according to our values and our pursuit and goals. So things that are meaningful to us, that's what helps make a meaningful and contributing life, I think, is the lingo. But the NDIS, while they sort of say in all their literature that they're very recovery-oriented and friendly, the fact of the matter is to meet the access criteria to get entry to the scheme, you need to prove two sort of key things. One is to prove that your condition is permanent or likely to be permanent, and there's a lot around the issue of using the term recovery, which is confusing for the people who process these forms. They see the word recovery and think, well, if you're going to recover, then it's not permanent, so on your way, please, don't be coming to us. So that can be a bit confusing for both us and for them. But the other main problem is what was I talking about? Sorry, recovery and...
Strengths-based?
Strengths-based, yes.
You talk about how some parents...
This idea that you need to be significantly impaired in one or more of the NDIS domains to get entry to the scheme. And not only that, you need to have exhausted all the available known necessary and evidence-based treatments that are available as part of that sort of proving that you are significantly impaired. So I guess first of all, that's that idea of, do I talk about recovery? Do I talk about my history of using, this service for 10 or 15 years? Or do I just talk about the fact that I have this significant illness which is going to be lifelong and my impairment is going to be forever and it's really, really bad, and here's a report telling you that, I can't get up in the morning and I struggle to shower and I didn't leave the house for over a year at one point, my teeth are falling out, which is horrible. You don't want to talk about all the bad stuff because you've tried for so long to work on this strengths-based approach where you're building yourself up and you're trying to do what you can with what you've got. Whereas I guess with the deficit-based model, you're looking at getting experts to write a report about you, telling this big organisation all the ways in which you are failing in life. And it's a horrible experience personally, but I know that a lot of parents who have children, young children in the scheme, and also parents who have children with perhaps an intellectual disability or adult children with something like Down syndrome, they don't want their children in the room when discussing these reports because they're really upsetting and traumatising.
Now you and many others have been talking about these issues for a long time, since the trials began and it all began to emerge. This is very difficult around mental health. We've heard about the psychosocial pathway that the NDIS has moved towards.
Yes.
Oops, sorry, I'm holding it wrongly. That was bad. I'll go back to that. So, has the NDIS learned?
Look, we're certainly trying. The NDIS has been doing a lot of work trying to, they've recognised, I guess, that there are lower numbers of people in the scheme with a primary psychosocial disability than was projected 8 years ago. 8 years ago, the Product Commission was saying the sort of magic number of 64,000 people. As of the end of June this year, the numbers I think were 25,132, I think it was, which is less than half. So clearly that shows that something is going on and there are some problems. We know that some of those problems came from people who were transitioning across from state-based services. Perhaps they moved house, perhaps they, like me, don't answer the phone, or I didn't check the mail for about 2 years. So there are these sort of common problems, especially with psychosocial disability. But so some people have been hard to get in contact with, so they can't transition them and sort of give them what they need in the new system. But there are lots of other people who perhaps were thought to have been going to qualify. So from those three programs I mentioned before, the FAMS, the PIR and the day-to-day living, they make up this sort of magic number of the 64,000 and Australia-wide. And there's some amazing work being done by Nicola Hancock and her team at University of Sydney tracking the transitions of these three programs. A couple of years ago, they did a report called Mind the Gap, and there was a bit of an uproar response from the agency that was quite critical. But since then, the agency's done quite a bit trying to reform their practice. They've rolled out a national training program trying to, I guess, given that one of the main criticisms was that the staff had not enough of an understanding of what psychosocial disability was and how it differed from physical and other types of disability. So the response the agency consulted, Mental Health Australia did a big report. They wrote a national training program and have rolled it out and trained up all their people in this a basic understanding of psychosocial disability.
And as a user?
Look, as a user, I guess trying to see how that works on the ground perhaps hasn't been as shiny as I present in my formal statement. I think the agency is doing what it can to try and make sure that everything's right at the upper echelons, but perhaps working it down to the level of the partner organisations and the sort of the satellite offices of the agency hasn't perhaps filtered through as well as it has upstairs.
What do we need?
What do we need? That's a really good question. I think that, as has probably been said from the beginning, you need to listen to the people who are there in front of you, and some form of trust needs to be placed in the person that's there applying, that they know what they're talking about and they know their own experience. I don't think that's an unreasonable thing. I don't think that there are many, the majority of people aren't there to game the system. Perhaps there might be a tiny minority who are there to exploit things, but I think most people are there just looking to get the support they need to survive.
And they're not the voices we're hearing, Tom. The gamers are not the people that we're hearing many stories of people having terrible experiences, including you. Yeah.
But it looks like I'm going to be heading up to the Administrative Appeals Tribunal because this sort of concept of mixed psychosocial and physical disability was difficult to manage in my local office. They sort of said, well, if you've got a psychosocial disability, that means you can't get physical support because you've got a psychosocial disability.
So how much pressure does complying, challenging, trying to meet, all that kind of stuff, how does that impact on you?
It's a huge strain. I think I said to you almost over a year ago now. It's had its moments where things seem hopeless and really hard to cope with. I had a reoccurrence of a symptom of my psychiatric illness that I haven't experienced for over a decade. And that's probably stress related, really. But, I have had to go on new medication that I haven't been on for over a decade, and I hate it. But I need to try and be as functional as I can, and that means taking medication that I don't want to take.
What's your message to the Prime Minister?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think that the funding for the agency is there. I think that
spend it.
Look, it's this free market system that we're hearing about that's supposed to stimulate competition and amazing services responsive to consumers' needs isn't working. In fact, it's driving services out of business. What we need is some security and transitional arrangements that go beyond what we've had so far to help these businesses stay in business so that they can then support people like me.
The market. I would ask you about how you're feeling about the conference, but we've just got them lined up.
I love the conference. Everyone, if you're not watching Twitter, please watch Murray on WePro.
And you, D. Peters, 1977.
77. Yes,
Young fellow you. Thank you very much, Dave.
Thanks, Murray.